Hello and welcome to VCCTV. This is Joseph Rai. We have with us today someone who's very well known in the healthcare sector, Vishal Bali, who is the chairman and founder of Medwell Ventures, and he is also the senior healthcare advisor to TPG Growth. For our viewers, I'd like to tell that this is the first part of the two-part video, and in this first part, we'll be talking to Vishal Bali about his entrepreneurial venture, Medwell Ventures. A warm welcome to you, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Joseph. Always a pleasure.
Let's start by talking about the home healthcare sector in general before we get into the specifics of Medwell Ventures. So the sector is at a pretty nascent stage, and however, few of the companies, including Medwell Ventures, has already got multiple rounds of funding. We also understand that one of the players spot here could be raising funds in a down round. I know you don't specifically comment on your peers, but I want to understand from you whether the down round has a negative connotation as it is made out to be, and is the home healthcare sector healthy enough even today?
So, Joseph, frankly, I will not, comment on the down round of any of our competitors. But I think overall, the home health as a sector is a future sector for the country. If you see all the conversations that have been happening around the healthcare sector within the country, the push around accessibility, affordability, new avenues of opportunities for growth of the sector, the encompassing of a larger section of the population and the community to receive healthcare. And last but not the least, the unbundling of services from the large multi-specialty hospitals to other streams of healthcare provision makes home healthcare as one of the leading opportunities in the healthcare ecosystem of the country. So, and that is the reason why you're seeing investor interest. That is the reason why you're seeing many companies now coming into the fray, which is a very positive thing, because the more number of players who come into this sector and help to grow the sector across the country, it's excellent for the sector. I think in the last round, we ourselves have received capital from Mahindra Partners and Fidelity, which just goes to show that there is enough and more interest by a plethora of investors.
I was just going to come to that. You got a very unlikely partner in Mahindra Partners. It's their first investment in the healthcare sector. How did this come about?
So I think it was, the team at Mahindra Partners has been looking at various opportunities in the healthcare sector within the country, and obviously they come from the house of Mahindras, and their vision is long term in terms of growth behind these companies. They have made a similar kind of effort on the retail side. Mom and Me was their retail chain. So they know healthcare. They've seen many opportunities in healthcare. And I think they wanted to also see a company which will be able to scale in the long run, and a company which is probably leading on the clinical side of things, and not just on the growth and the expansion bit. But there was an element that that they were excited about, was our ability to look at intense clinical care in the overall agenda for home health care. So I think that is really something that Mahindra Partners saw in us. And we are very excited to have both Fidelity and Mahindra Partners as our core investors. We've had a great relationship with Fidelity over the last couple of years. So I think we are very excited about the prospect of growing home healthcare in the country. We started 2 more cities post the investment. We started the city of Pune. We recently started the city of Chennai. We're looking at NCR next. So we continue to expand and grow.
So Medwell Ventures is mainly concentrated in southern India, and you're again expanding in Pune. What about cracking other regions?
So, if you look at the number of markets that we now cater to, we are in Bombay. In fact, we have our largest presence in the country in Bombay. Although we started in Bangalore, but the number of branches that we have in Bombay is now higher. So we have Bombay, we have Bangalore, we have Hyderabad, we have Pune, we started Chennai. So we're now in 5 large metros of the country. We basically are looking to do our offering of services across 10 cities in the country, and we will get there. So I think obviously the core started with South and the West, but we will look at North, and we will look at the East too. But I think, as you have seen, we've been very calibrated in terms of our approach to growth. We have gone into every city and consolidated our presence rather than just putting a flag on a city. So Like in Bombay now, we have 7 branches. You know, a year and a half back, we had 1. So that's the pace of growth that we're seeing in each one of these cities.
All right. And what about plans to acquire? Because Medwell Ventures more or less started by acquiring Nightingales. Are there sufficient or good assets in the market?
So Joseph, we continue to look at opportunities for both organic and inorganic growth. And if there are potential opportunities that come our way, number one, we have in both our investors, they have great interest in growing the enterprise. And if there are right inorganic opportunities, we will be there to acquire them. However, as you know, that in the sector, there has been a lot of unorganized play in the past. So the number of organized players that you see, which would also be good for an acquisition, are not very many. But we are in the market, and if there is an interesting opportunity, we will definitely try and look at that opportunity.
We also understand that Medwell Ventures is trying to go beyond the basic physiotherapy, nursing that and other home healthcare services providers are providing. You're focusing on the critical, serious and chronic diseases. Tell us a little bit about that and what kind of traction are we getting in India?
So, you know, we see ourselves as a care plan company. We see ourselves as a home healthcare provider which is focused on chronic diseases. Because ultimately, the subgroup of patients that we are trying to serve are not just patients who require bedside care. We're basically trying to see as what is that subgroup of patients which is today going into the large hospitals and where the average stay in the hospital is just about 24 to 36 hours. How can we basically get many of these patients treated at home? So, for example, patients who have COPD, you know, they have pulmonary distress, and particularly in certain seasons of the year, the pulmonary distress grows. But all that they receive inside a hospital is probably oxygen for some time. They are in the ER for some time, or they are taken into the intensive care unit. They are on, you know, they are on some steady supply of oxygen for some time, and then they are discharged. So this is a group of patients who can actually be treated at home with CPAP, BiPAP machines, with oxygen concentrators, which are all mobile technologies today. This subgroup of patients can be really treated at home. That is becoming one of our fastest care plan within the country, in each one of the cities. The other one where we have seen a lot of traction is particularly patients who have neurological health issues, particularly those who had strokes, neurological strokes. Now, the patients who have had neurological strokes don't need just physiotherapy to recover, but they need a team approach. They need a multidisciplinary approach. So they need a doctor, they need a nurse, they need a respiratory therapist, they even need dentists. So that's how we got into home dentistry, because the first bunch of patients that we treated for stroke, they needed some level of dentistry work, basically because of the paralysis that had happened. So we are finding now, in fact, at this point in time, we have about 450 stroke patients on a daily basis who are being looked after by Nightingales, which is our home healthcare company across the country. So we see the opportunity very clearly on the chronic diseases side. So while we see transactional opportunities of sending a nurse at home or a doctor at home or a physiotherapist at home, but we see the care plans as the real opportunity for our future growth. And that is really what we are trying to put in place in each one of the cities where we exist.
Okay. And what does competition look like, especially from the healthcare providers such as hospitals who are also trying to get into the sector?
So I think it's good basically because when you have large hospital chains also wanting to be in the home healthcare space, it actually validates the concept of home healthcare. And I'm very happy to see that some of the hospital chains are actually going down that path. So which basically shows that the ecosystem will expand and grow fairly quickly. Because when more number of players are actually telling the patients that they can, in certain situations, that they can be treated at home, that is the right approach for patient communication. Because the patients have traditionally gone into nursing homes and hospitals for everything. The vision of healthcare in this country has been around hospital beds. Right? So if there are new ecosystems and if there are new delivery mechanisms which need to come in place, then when hospitals begin to tell patients that for this particular ailment, we will treat you at home, that is a big validation. And I think we're getting there, and it's good to see some of the momentum on that side.
It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.